Tonight on Reporting Scotland, champion boxer Willie Limond dies at the age of 45. Described as an icon of Scottish boxing, he held British and Commonwealth super lightweight titles. Also tonight, a group of families whose loved ones died in controversial or violent circumstances are calling for reforms on how such deaths are investigated.
They just didn't investigate. It was just written off. Nothing. The scene wasn't held, it was released that night. So the ease at which they can say something is accident or suicide is incredible.
Also on tonight's programme, we're out with the detectorists.
We still was going.
So how old's that then?
1817.
1817, so just after Waterloo.
We're digging up more buried treasure than ever before, but does the system for archaeological finds need modernised?
Coming up in sport, there's a big injury concern for Scotland ahead of the Euros, and we look back at what was a huge result for Ross County against Rangers.
And we're on the daytime dance floor with the cast of Line of Duty. Hello, I'm Laura Miller. Welcome to Monday's programme. An icon of Scottish boxing with an iron will who fought until the end. Just some of the comments made by those who knew Willie Limond, who's died at the age of 45. During a career spanning more than 20 years in the ring, he held British and Commonwealth super lightweight titles. Our sports news correspondent Chris McLaughlin reports.
He was a man devoted to his sport, a proud Scot and a fearsome fighter who won amateur, British and European titles. He first shot to attention after taking the vacant Commonwealth title in 2006. And in a star-studded career, he notched up 42 wins from 48 fights. This was ahead of his last fight against Ricky Burns last year.
Willie was very, very good, in fact. Much better, I think, than a lot of people realised. He never won a world title, but he was Commonwealth champion. He fought for the British. He fought at a high level, fought in Mexico against the great Eric Morales. And he was a very game fighter, but he was a talented fighter. I think his great strength was a big, big heart.
He mixed it with some of the sport's biggest names, seen here taking on Amir Khan at the O2 Arena in 2007. A born fighter who was universally liked in the sport he loved.
He phoned me in as well, like a few months back, and he was like, "Get me on your undercards and things like that." And it's like, what are you coming back at your age for, Willie? He was just like, life's just boring without boxing, you know. And he loved it, you know. He loved boxing, and that was who he was. He lived and breathed the sport, and it was just he just loved it. You know, he was a true fighter through and through.
What made you want to become a boxer?
I've done boxing since I was a wee boy, since I was about 6-year-old.
But he was also a keen footballer and made 5 appearances for Albion Rovers. But he was to shine brightest in the ring and was happy to inspire the next generation. A life cut short, but a life lived doing what he loved. A champion, a fighter, a father. Scottish boxing and beyond mourn the loss of a great.
The boxer Willie Limond, who's died at the age of 45. Now, a group of families whose loved ones died in controversial or violent circumstances are calling for reforms on how such deaths are investigated. They want a coroner given responsibility for looking into sudden deaths in Scotland, similar to the system used in England and Wales. The Crown Office says every reported death is investigated thoroughly and independently. Stephen Gordon has more.
Colin Marr was 23 when he died from a single stab wound to his chest following a row with his fiancée. His family have never believed the original police ruling that Colin's death was suicide.
They just didn't investigate. It was just written off. Nothing. The scene wasn't held, it was released that night. So the ease at which they can say something is accident or suicide is incredible.
17 years fighting what they believe is a miscarriage of justice has convinced Colin's family of the need for reform. Rather than the Crown Office investigating sudden deaths, they want Scotland to adopt a similar system to other parts of the UK, where responsibility lies with a coroner.
The failings of our cases right at the beginning the coroner would have said, why haven't you done an investigation? Any investigation? Why have you not done this? Because they would be asking that. And immediately, the police would have done something differently. Now, turn on its head, if the police know they're going to get asked those questions, they would do the right job in the first place.
Those campaigning for change argue a coroner's wider remit gives families more involvement and ensures important questions are asked when it comes to things like drug deaths.
There's a real danger that we're missing suicides, we're missing foul play, we're missing a variety of different indicators that could be, again, you know, if we were recording this properly, could be learnt from and could actually over time save lives if we were willing to look at those lessons.
A Crown Office spokesperson says the Procurator Fiscal investigates every reported death thoroughly and independently to establish what happened and consider whether criminal proceedings or a fatal accident inquiry is appropriate or not. Moving to a model that in England involves holding thousands of coroners' inquests every year would be a major restructuring, according to one legal expert.
The coroner system has been subject to criticism because it takes far too long. There's a lot of delays in the system in England, and it doesn't have that medical expertise. However, I think probably many families in Scotland might see the specialism that the coroner's court have specifically in areas of surrounding sudden death and look at that as something they want.
The campaign for change comes as Colin Marr's family await a fresh review of evidence, which the Crown Office say will be looked at by a prosecutor with no previous involvement in his case. Stephen Gordon, reporting Scotland.
We could soon see higher prices for some fresh produce like meat, fish and cheese imported from the EU, while some small food businesses could close. This, distributors are warning, is a result of new post-Brexit import rules on certain items, which come into force at the end of this month. Some of the products coming from the EU will be the subject of new border checks and import fees, as Katrina Renton reports.
Michael Onorati owns an Italian cafe and restaurant on the south side of Glasgow. He serves authentic Italian produce.
This is San Daniele Prosciutto, from a small village in northern Italy, just outside Venice, considered one of the best hams in Italy.
From the 30th of April, fresh produce from the EU, like meat and many cheeses, will be subject to new rules, including border checks. Health certificates for each individual product have been in place since January. This all comes at a cost for small businesses who buy multiple items.
We're Italian. Meat and cheese is life. We aim to be a part of this community, so we want to give the customers the best value for money. We always want to give them the best quality available as well. So it's quite tricky trying to plan around this, obviously getting nice expensive meats in, good quality cheeses, and still make a profit, obviously, to keep the doors open.
Fresh produce, including some fish, cheese and meat products coming into the UK through ports like Dover, will be subject to fees. A charge of up to £29 will apply for each individual product, and there will be a cap at £145 for mixed consignments. The body that represents the chilled food distribution sector has said that while supermarkets should be able to absorb the additional costs, small businesses will probably struggle and prices for consumers will inevitably rise.
The restaurant, which is having to pay for smaller consignments, each of which attract a charge from now on, from the 30th of April, it's those restaurants and the consumers that use those restaurants and the delicatessens and the fishmonger that will be the ones that simply cannot absorb that cost.
Many of Rachna Deer's specialist cheeses are non-pasteurised and subject to the new rules.
The effect will be that A, we might not get the cheese, or it'll be just way too expensive for us to sell to our customers. And then that way, half our cheese is unpasteurised anyway. So that's like half of the stock not there. So then what we'll sell, eventually start selling, will be just cheddars. I think the impact will be that loss of sales, loss of business in the end, really, because the customers just won't pay for it.
The UK government said the charges follow extensive consultation with industry, and a cap has been set specifically to help smaller businesses. Fruit and vegetables are currently exempt from the charges. Katrina Renton, reporting Scotland.
To some of the day's other stories now. And a man has been arrested and charged following an alleged hit and run in Edinburgh. A 63-year-old woman was taken to the city's Royal Infirmary after the incident on Muirhouse Parkway shortly after 4 o'clock yesterday afternoon. She remains in a serious condition. The car left the scene but was later traced. A 61-year-old man is due to appear in court tomorrow. A former Shetland primary school teacher who was found guilty of indecent behaviour involving pupils has been jailed for 2.5 years. Stephen Tate, who's 41, was convicted of 6 charges involving young boys dating back more than a decade. And a strike by journalists at STV, which was due to take place tomorrow, has been postponed following talks between the National Union of Journalists and the company. The NUJ wants a bigger pay rise for staff, but the company called their 6% pay demand unrealistic. More talks will now take place. A strike last month blacked out the station's Scottish news programmes. Now, for decades, Scotland's treasure trove system has been used to decide whether archaeological objects should be preserved for the nation or returned to the person who found them. But a backlog caused by the pandemic and a boom in the popularity of hobbies like metal detecting has placed the system under pressure. Our Home Affairs correspondent David Cowan has been finding out more.
On a windswept Sunday morning, a search for buried treasure. This farmland has provided a rich bounty in the past. Its exact location in Perthshire is secret, known only to those with permission to scan its soil.
When you get a good signal, you're excited. You don't know what it is. And if you're finding history, it's just amazing.
95% of the time, it's rubbish you're finding, but it's lead. Just a piece of lead.
Every silver coin.
So how old's that then?
What age did you say it was?
1817.
1817, so
Yeah.
just after Waterloo.
Yeah.
Anything of archaeological value that's found in this field is classed as ownerless property, and that means it can be claimed by the Crown. The detectorists have to send the object in to the Treasure Trove unit in Edinburgh, and a small team of specialists will then decide whether it should be offered to museums or returned to the finder to add to their collection. It's not just coins that have to go to the Treasure Trove unit.
We've got a range of objects here. We'll start off with this really lovely axe head. You can see, hopefully, some of the faceting on the side. It's really beautifully made.
Detectorists, field walkers, amateur and professional archaeologists are sending in more finds than ever before, placing the system under pressure. A mobile app may be introduced to report finds and speed up the process.
The aim is to streamline and to modernise and to use all the tools that are available to us without necessarily having to compromise. Let's do this smartly, let's do it better, but let's make sure we can keep doing it.
Back in Perthshire, the fields had yielded 4 coins from the 14th century. Their finder would like Scotland's rules to be closer to those of England and Wales.
I'd like to see finds from 1700s and after not included as treasure, because it would speed up the system.
Another change could involve the financial awards given for items which go to museums. In England and Wales, it's the law that finders share the money with landowners. In Scotland, agreements are reached on an informal basis. On rare occasions, there are disputes. In 2019, the Church of Scotland sued for a share of this £2 million Viking hoard unearthed on its land in Dumfries and Galloway. The case was settled out of court.
It is important, to formalise that, because at the moment, most people, and certainly for a long time, it's all been done on a handshake. And handshakes are great until something goes wrong.
A public consultation on the Treasure Trove review closes next month. David Cowan reporting Scotland, Perthshire.
Now, one of the world's very first female commercial airline pilots was a Scot, yet few people will have even heard of the aviation pioneer Winnie Drinkwater. Here in the UK, the latest figures from the Civil Aviation Authority put the number of female airline pilots at about 6.5%. So how much has changed since Winnie's flying days in the 1930s?
She was groundbreaking.
Such an inspiration.
Completely ahead of her time.
Winnie Drinkwater was a Scottish pilot in the 1930s. She had a licence as a pilot, she had a licence as a commercial pilot, and a licence as an engineer, all by the time she was 20 years old. She was a champion for equal pay. She persuaded her boss to pay her the same as male pilots. 30 odd years before the Equal Pay Act, but as a nation we've pretty much forgotten all about her, and that just doesn't seem right when she could inspire so many young people to achieve so much.
It's very liberating. You feel very free. It's very empowering. Yeah, Winnie Drinkwater, when I read her story, it definitely put a smile on my face. It was such a brave thing to do in those times, and we should definitely inherit that spirit and that sense of fight and pushing against the status quo. We definitely need more female role models within aviation. I would love one day that we don't say female pilot, we just say pilot, the same way that we would say teacher or doctor.
So when I walked into my first flying school, I walked into a room just surrounded by a group of really knowledgeable men who were very, very interested in aviation from a very young age and knew what they were talking about. And what that really did, unintentionally, was made me feel like I didn't belong there. You can't be what you can't see. You know, if you grow up thinking that every single pilot you've seen, every single air traffic controller that you see on TV, and every single engineer that you see is male, then how could you think that you would fit into that environment? I think today that society has changed. It's not automatically assumed that once a woman gets married and starts a family, that's it, she has to quit everything else in her life. It's not always easy to combine family life and being a pilot, but you know, airlines are starting to offer more support, more flexible working days for childcare. So all it takes is just a little bit more representation and a little bit more necessity of women coming into the industry for that to change.
OK, let's get tonight's sport now with Amy. Hi.
Hi, Laura. Thanks very much. Good evening. Well, with 2 months until the opening game of Euro 2024, Scotland manager Steve Clarke faces a worrying weight on the fitness of midfielder Lewis Ferguson, who suffered a knee injury over the weekend. The former Aberdeen and Hamilton player has enjoyed a fine campaign in Italy's Serie A, captaining his side Bologna at just 24 years of age. But the club have confirmed he will require surgery on his cruciate ligament before assessing his recovery. In a post of his own on social media, Ferguson said he is devastated and will do everything he can to come back better and stronger. Well, we will get to the dramatic events from the weekend in a moment, but first to the one game left to be played before we learn the post-split fixtures later this week. It is Dundee against Rangers, and it has been confirmed that the game will be played at St Johnstone's McDiarmid Park on Wednesday if it cannot be held at Dens Park. There will be a pitch inspection tomorrow in Dundee to determine where the game will go ahead. Rangers accused Dundee of negligence and unprofessionalism after the match was postponed for a second time because of a waterlogged pitch last week. If the match moves to Perth, it will still be categorised as a Dundee home game. And it was, yes, a huge weekend in the Premiership. In both the race for the title and the fight for survival, it was an historic day for Ross County as they secured their first ever win over Rangers. After falling behind, the home side stormed into the lead thanks to quick-fire goals from Simon Murray and George Harman. Josh Sims made it 3-1 with around 20 minutes to go, and despite conceding a late penalty to reduce the deficit to 1, the Staggies did manage to hold on and get those all-important 3 points.
Very disappointed because we didn't play a good game. We give away easy goals. But then you give hope to the opponents because they are leading, then they throw themselves in front of the ball, and then it's more difficult to score goals. But with and without the ball, it was not good enough today, so I'm very disappointed about it.
What we get from today is 3 points, nothing more, even though we've beat Rangers. But on top of that, we have to take belief and confidence from it. We've got 5 very important games coming up. We've got a 2-week break now until our next game. We'll enjoy tonight because it's not often you beat Rangers, but then it's about focusing on those next 5 games.
More on Ross County in a moment, but just looking at the top half of the table, this is how things stand in the title race after that defeat for Rangers. 4 points now separate the top 2. Celtic sitting top, having played a game more, but it is a poor run of form for Philippe Clement's side, who've picked up just 4 points from their last 4 games. So how does it leave things for the title run-in? Well, former Scotland international Pat Nevin shared his thoughts on the Scottish Football Podcast.
I mean, you'll think about the periods of a season. There are one or two periods where your jaw hits the floor. It was one of them. It absolutely was one of those periods. And the thing I would say about Rangers, in the first half of the game against Celtic, which I was at, they didn't show imagination, which I expected a bit more from them. And maybe in this game that was the problem. You know, get your corners, lump it in there. Sophistication, something clever and quiet, like the neat little 1-2s that Ross County were playing for their goals. Maybe that was missing, and that in the end might be the thing that cost them the title.
As we mentioned, it was a first ever win for Ross County against Rangers, but it also may just play a significant role in their hopes of avoiding the drop. We got the thoughts of fans after a memorable day in Dingwall.
For the first time to beat Rangers, it's just huge. I think going into the split now, that just gives the squad like massive confidence because we're a point behind St Johnstone now.
They put a lot of work into it yesterday. We rode our luck a couple of times as well, but you need a bit of luck, as you know.
And my little boy goes to the Ross County training, so he was absolutely buzzing, and he's a Celtic fan, so he was absolutely delighted with the result, yeah.
Pub was full of Rangers guys arguing and blah, and I kept my mouth shut, and I went home with a smile.
I'm sure he did. Well, it was a big weekend in the Scottish Women's Premier League as well, with champions Glasgow City suffering defeat to Rangers yesterday to leave their hopes of retaining the title hanging by a thread. Finished 4-1 to Joe Potter's Rangers side in Cumbernauld, and with the game finally poised at 1-1, Lizzie Arnott sent a superb strike into the top corner to put the hosts in front. While elsewhere, there was a very comfortable 5-0 victory for Celtic against Partick Thistle. Murphy Agnew completing the scoring midway through the second half there. And here is how it leaves the SWPL then. 25 games played, and with 7 to go, it is quite an uphill task for the holders. Glasgow City now 7 points behind leaders Rangers, who themselves only have a slender 1-point advantage at the top. However, Celtic in second have a superior goal difference, and the two of them will go head-to-head in 3 weeks' time. Tennis now, and Andy Murray is due to get back to training soon, according to a statement from his management company, after it was discovered he doesn't need surgery on the ankle ligaments that he ruptured in Miami at the end of last month. It was revealed this afternoon that Murray is now out of his walking boot and will not be requiring surgery. They added that his rehab is going well and that he's hoping to start hitting again on court soon. That is such positive news, isn't it?
Absolutely. Good man. You can't keep him down, can you?
I know, certainly bounces back every time.
OK, thanks, Amy. OK, now it's over to Laura McKeever to find out what's happening on the BBC Scotland channel at 9 o'clock.
Tonight, as its allies call for restraint, we'll ask how Israel might respond to attempted strikes by Iran at the weekend. We'll also hear from the chief executive of a Scottish hospice as it emerges the sector is facing a financial crisis. And we'll be joined on the sofa by the American ballerina who's researching how dance could help people in Scotland with multiple sclerosis. We'll see you at 9.
Now, you might have thought your clubbing days were behind you. Well, here's something that might drag you back onto the dance floor. Day Fever is a club event for the over 30s, which is done and dusted by tea time. Among the organisers is Line of Duty star Vicky McClure, who brought along her co-star and chum, Martin Compston, to its first Scottish date at the weekend. Our arts correspondent, Polly McLean, went along too.
It's just after 3 in the afternoon, and the dance floor is heaving. Welcome to Day Fever, a club for the over 30s where you can dance the day away. Actress Vicky McClure is one of the organisers, and this is her first foray into Scotland.
Scotland loves a dance. Scotland loves a party. That's the way. I personally don't have any desire to go clubbing till 2, 3 in the morning. Do you know what I mean? And we were just saying, it's predominantly women. It does feel like a really safe environment. You want to just let loose and have a dance, and that is exactly what Day Fever's about.
Friends and family are all involved, including Vicky's husband Johnny and their friend John McClure, a musician and DJ. He believes the rave generation still want to dance.
My brother said it was like trying to summon up my mum's kitchen in 1996, or a wedding but nobody's got married. And it's kind of a thing that's for everybody. And I think the moment you stop trying to be cool, you actually enjoy your life a bit more, and we love it. We'd come to this if we weren't part of it, you see.
I've been thinking,
Maybe we should put surveillance on Cafferty's place.
Any particular reason?
Well, the OCG will be worried she can ID the female nominal. Maybe.
Each event has featured special guests, and in Glasgow that can mean only one thing: her line of duty mate, Martin Compston. Not so much murder as mayhem on the dance floor as AC12 take charge.
People have said, look, if I can go once a month and I can meet the same people, then that would be a great thing. So nothing would delight me more than that it be in every major city once a month.
As the day draws to a close, the evening is just beginning, and most have simple plans.
Stumble home, get into bed, chill out, check my phone, watch telly, make a cup of tea. I mean, it really, people will go, oh, what are you doing after? I'm like, going to bed, that's the point of day fever, going home, chilling out.
Polly McLean, reporting Scotland, Glasgow.
What more could you want? A wee dance and then back home from an early bath, eh? Maybe some sunshine would be good too.
Yeah, a lovely bit of sunshine around today, actually, Laura, but a number of blustery showers with it as well. Thank you very much indeed. Very good evening to you. We've had quite a start to the week, really, with fairly frequent blustery showers, those strong winds driving them in, and a cool feel, certainly compared with yesterday. Into this evening and overnight, many showers fade away, but you can see we still have an area of wet weather towards parts of the north and northeast in towards Aberdeenshire. Elsewhere, clearing skies and falling temperatures, 2 to 5 Celsius in towns and cities. In the countryside, colder with a touch of frost. But it means tomorrow morning for most, a dry and fine start to Tuesday, some sunshine. The showers with us first thing across the far north, and then through the day, just working their way southwards in towards the central lowlands, certainly by mid-afternoon. And here's a snapshot at 4 o'clock. In the south, still largely dry, variable cloud, bit of sunshine. Further north, some sunshine, but also some showers to go with it. And on the very highest hills and mountains, those showers will be wintry. But for most, if you catch a shower tomorrow, it will be of rain. The wind's still brisk around the north and northwest coast, coming in from the north and northwest. And those showers still frequent in the Northern Isles. As we head in towards Wednesday now, you can see that whilst we've got high pressure towards the west and the slackening of the isobars, so lightning winds, we do have this weather front bringing some cloud and rain across western parts of the country. First thing, we still have the showers across parts of Grampian and the far north. Elsewhere, largely dry, but cloud tending to build. And there in the west, you can see that weather front just trying to push in some cloud and wet weather. Through the central belt and the south, turning milder, still cool further north. For the end of the week, this is Thursday into Friday. Low pressure on Thursday, bringing some rain, and then high pressure beginning to dominate through Friday and the weekend. Before we get there, here's Thursday. So there's that area of low pressure bringing cloud and outbreaks of rain. So it will be a dull and damp day. That clears through, and that means Friday is drier and brighter and beginning to warm up as well into the teens through the central lowlands and the south, still cooler further north. And that warming trend sticking with us into the weekend, but cloud trapped within that area of high pressure. So milder, yes, but also cloudy. That's the forecast for now, Laura.
Pictures of hailstones today, that's all I'm seeing, Chris.
Yes, indeed.
Thank you. Now, tonight's main news again. The former British and Commonwealth super lightweight champion Willie Limond has died at the age of 45. The Glaswegian won 42 of his 48 professional fights over a 24-year career. And a group of families whose loved ones died in controversial or violent circumstances are calling for reforms on how such deaths are investigated. They want a similar model to the coroner system in England and Wales. And that is Reporting Scotland. I will have your late news around 10:30 tonight. Join me then if you can. Until then, enjoy your evening. Good night.